Yeah, there's two things that kind of stood out to me that are problems that this would solve. Number one, for a while there, and I've kind of gotten away from it just because my deal flow isn't quite as high as it used to be. So it's a little bit easier to manage. But when your deal flow is high, I was starting a bank account for every property so that I could know the money flowing into that account and every dollar flowing out of that account was designated to that property. And that is a way of doing it, but that's a lot of bank accounts to track and open and close. And
you're not the only one, Kirby. Like a lot of people I ask, landlords, I say, well, what's your financial accounting system? They're like, my bank account. I have one bank account. I have one core operating account for every property.
Yeah.
So I can keep it straight.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's all about that. Schedule E is such a pain in the ass to do that's how they manage it. So you're not alone.
Yeah. And because it was easier than trying to go through every expense and say, which property was this for? And so, but if it's in a Zibo account, it sounds like, as those transactions are being transacted, you can just label it for that property, or somehow Zibo could potentially recognize a transaction and suggest maybe a property or something like that. So that's one thing that's, I think, is a huge benefit. And then the other thing, like you said, was turning the money orders into electronic payments. That will increase collection so much. I mean, I've had a lot of Section 8 tenants in the past, and a lot of them just don't have they just don't have bank accounts, and so they have to get a money order. And
cashier's check. I mean, we'll take anything because we're a bank.
Yeah.
And
the likelihood.
Kirby, you said that's really remarkable, and I want to hit on it is, our mindset is to fundamentally change the way that banking works for landlords. And in today's world, the banking account setup that you have for any business is the same. Like there's no differentiation whatsoever, even though a landlord's business is fundamentally different the way that they manage it. And if you have to open a business checking account, there's all kinds of fees associated with it. And there's all kinds of hidden fees. And if you go below minimum balance, you get hit by all these fees. I'm sure you know all this. So if you've got all these bank accounts that you're trying to manage, and you got all these fees hitting you all over the place, it's crazy. So our view is the following. We're not trying to build the exact same bank that you currently have. We're trying to build something fundamentally different. So when you open a Zibo account, we would recommend that you have 2 accounts for each LLC or holding structure. So if you're a sole proprietor, you can have 2 accounts, 1 operating account and 1 security deposit account. So you really should keep the security deposit account separate, because that's not really your money. You're holding it on behalf of someone else, and it's a balance sheet item with a liability against it. Mm-hmm. And so that should be in a separate account. Now, you don't have to have, now there's different regulations, and I'm just going to say this is not a legal interpretation and you should look at the right license. But in Zibo, you can have 1 security deposit account, and you can have a table that essentially keeps track of every single tenant security deposit account, whether or not you owe them interest, when their check-in date was, when their check-out date is, and then you'll have a link to the lease and the check-in form, all in one place, all in one table, all associated with that security deposit account for LLC ABC. That operating account could have 10 properties in it, 20 tenants, and everything coming into that account, because every single transaction gets tagged to a property, a unit, and an expense bucket. And you can also split expenses across properties. And if that's happening in 1 account, and by the way, it's no fees, and you get paid interest on your cash. Nothing like this exists. This is 100% designed just for the landlord.
Man, that's awesome. What I've noticed is the level of organization that I've had in my business directly relates to the level of profit. It's like as soon as I can get more organized, which it sounds like this could potentially bring a lot of that to somebody, you have the capacity then to do more deals. You have the capacity to know or just make better decisions, because you know how a property is performing in much more real time than when you get your financial statement at the end of the month. I just wrapped up a fantastic interview with Chris Shue. You know, what you just saw is a clip from that interview. But if you want to see the full interview, you can go to the Living Off Rentals podcast on any podcast player and check it out. Also, you can join us in the Living Off Rentals Facebook group. It's an awesome, engaged community, not a bunch of spammers. It's actually real investors who are talking real investment questions and conversations. So definitely go over to Facebook, join that community, and I will see you in the next video.